they are solving is really there. And the same about customers, because your problems take you to your customers, and also the solution. Whatever you build, does it really solution to the problem that you proved, let's say? And this is also the way it works. So solution takes you to the market. And basically, it's not hard to deal with this. You can design and run an exercise in a week to prove each of these groups. In total, usually it takes up to 10, 12 weeks to do a really solid customer development for the team of 4 or 5 people. Okay, so and this is the canonical customer development. This is something if we talk about something very high level that I want you to take from today's presentation, this would be it. So what are the steps for canonical customer development? So first one is customer discovery, customer validation, and these two are together are this search group. So this is where you are searching your customers. And the second part, when you find your customers and you prove there is a market, you start focusing on a customer creation and company building. Customer creation is basically growth, and company building is the administrative and operation and setting up operational capacities for the company, for the machine to work. So okay, so these are two groups. So customer discovery, customer validation is where you search your customers, and customer creation and company building, this is where the execution starts. So it's more about operations. Okay, so and here's a question: who is doing customer development? If you think so, your customer development should be done by your marketing team, by your sales team, or someone else. Again, I rush to disappoint you, because the customer development is done only by founders. And the main reason for this, that the customer development should be done only by founders, is the following. Because during customer development, you can learn some stuff that you never expected. And now imagine if you send your marketing person or an intern to do customer development for you. Now they come back to you with very valuable data, and they share their data with you, but you have your own biases. And now, because of your biases, you are not going to trust maybe your marketing person, maybe the intern, etc. Which means most probably you won't make the best decision in the current circumstances. So that's why, who is the person in charge of customer development? Who are the people who should do customer development? So these are definitely founders. This is something that you can never delegate. Okay, so and if we talk about this constant, let's say, constant process of setting up experiments, and then setting up hypotheses, building experiments, then proving or rejecting your hypothesis. So we are talking about a process where the core thing is speed and tempo. So you need to, one of the things that you should have in your internal metrics, that you need to track how long each your new experiment takes. If your first few experiments take, let's say, 7 days, so your goal now is to come up with the experiments that take you 6 days. And this is something that especially in the beginning, you should pay a lot of attention to. And if we talk about speed and tempo, it means that hypothesis testing involves a lot of failure. And this is a way, it is a place where you be very comfortable. Even it should please you how much failures you have, because you come up with one hypothesis, you go and test, it's a failure. And this is something that you should have, this healthy excitement. Okay, failure, this means it's a learning, and this is something you should definitely celebrate. And there will be a lot of failure because the hypothesis, the ideas we usually have on our mind and how the reality works, actually, so there's a gap. There's definitely a gap there. And our work is to test this hypothesis and come to the reality as faster as possible. And there's a saying, so when you have a lot of failures, so what you should do, you should fire the plan, not the people. Because you are in charge of the plan, and people are those who are executing it for you. So if you have failures, constant failures, okay, fire the plant, not the people. This is again something important. I want you to keep in mind. So not because this will help you not to make the failures, because you are going to have a lot of failures. Not to this will help to keep failures outside of personal relationships. So you always know that the reason for failures is the plan, not the people. So sorry, was there a question or? Okay, I'll proceed. Okay, and now we come to the definition of what is a startup, and this is one of the definitions that I really like. It's based on the definition from Eric Ries, the author of Lean Startup. By the way, this customer development process it was developed by a person named Steve Blank, who Eric Ries was his student. So all the movement of this Lean Startup came out of this customer development. So okay, so in a traditional startup definition, so startup is a knowledge institution, and this might be one of the most surprising things to hear about a company, about a startup. Because what is a startup? It's something that tries to learn how to build something that people will use in the future. So definitely it's where you deal with a lot of knowledge. So it's a knowledge institution or a group of people and designed to deliver a new product or service. So this will be another important thing to emphasize. So it's always about innovation. It's always about a new product or a service. And the third point here is it always happens under conditions of extreme uncertainty, because you are dealing with uncertainty, you are dealing with bench of risks, and that's how it works. This is the game, and these are the basics of the game. If people are comfortable with this, okay, so it means they can consider doing a startup, building a great innovative company, right, using tech. If people are not comfortable with this, most probably startups are not for them, and that's also totally fine. So okay, so we came to the first exercise, and it's going to be about customer segments. So one of the basic, let's say, one of the most important things in customer development is to try to think who are your customer segments. And one of the exercises I really like, it's called A Day in the Life. So try to come up with maybe 3-5 different groups of your customer segments. For example, I'm building something that can be used by, let's say, young moms, can be used by, let's say, let's say new formed families, or just come up with some customer segments. Let's say we in this example, let's say it's something that that is for, about young moms, right? So okay, we wake up at 6:30. Okay, and then the way it works, so we put time. So we put, let's say, times from 6 a.m. until, let's say, 12 p.m. And we start assuming what these people, the people that we are targeting, they are doing, what their day looks like. Okay, now let's say they wake up at 6:30. Okay, and then they so there's some FaceTime at 7 a.m., right? So and then at so okay, so at 9:30 they are arriving at the office, and let's say at 5:45 there's some meeting. At 11 p.m. there is another bedtime. Um, and this is what they do during their day, like, so they spend one time during this FaceTime, which means in the bathroom, right? So let's say they like candles, and they have at least in average 9 candles in their bathrooms. Like, they spend 10 minutes on something. At 11 a.m. There is some press conference. Let's say it's a weekly, and it happens, etc. So try to come up with this with few customer segments, and then try to build few examples of this day in the life. maybe what we can do just for you, not to make it just a theory, maybe you can spend now another 2-3 minutes. I will wait. That's totally fine with me. So, and if you have a pen and pencil in front of you, paper and pen in front of you, maybe you can just go through this exercise and try to see what this regular day in one of your customer segments look like. Hovjan, is it fine if we do it this way?
Yes, Hamjan, it's perfectly okay. You are free to run the way you want.
Okay, guys. I'll put a timer for 2 minutes. So just to do your best, and then we will take it from there. If you have any questions, if you didn't get anything for until this point or about this exercise, again, please let me know.
Yes, sir. I have a question. What if I'm building a B2B solution and not necessarily a consumer product? How can I determine the day in life of my customer segment? Because the business I might be dealing with has multiple decision makers. So how can I?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is a really great question. So, and the answer is the following. So you come up with key 3 to 5 people in the type of organization you're targeting. Let's say it's a small and medium enterprise in agriculture, right? With employees, let's say with 50 employees, right? And now you are identifying who are these 3 to 5 people in this 50% company, who are your key targets to deal with. Now, most probably one of them is CEO. Most probably one of them is a CFO, right? Maybe in some cases it's also CTO. And now you start building this kind of day in the life also for each of them. In case of B2B, it looks much it requires more work in the beginning, but I can assure you that you are gonna love the results, because you will see some patterns. It seems that those technical people, let's say CTOs of companies up to, let's say, from 40 to 60 people in agriculture in this country, in some specific country, it seems their CTOs usually wake up at 7. It seems that their CTOs usually have 1 to 3 kids, right? You are going to find some patterns that might surprise you, and also there will be, of course, also not only personal patterns but also work patterns. For example, it seems that all of them are doing their let's say procurement in this way. It seems because let's say those people have this social profile, they prefer to avoid this and this type of risks. So again, doing this exercise it is going to be beneficial even if you are in a B2B business. Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So it's more than 2 minutes. I think we can move forward. I think you got the idea. I definitely advise guys, operators who are running the program. Just in my opinion, it makes sense maybe to have a practical session, maybe with mentors, if there are mentors involved in the program, just to go through these exercises. Based on my personal experience, these are very, very valuable exercises, and I'll be happy to share the slides afterwards. Okay, yeah. So. If we talk about okay, so second exercise would be, again, it's also about customer segment, and it has to do with the first one, and we also touched this one a bit. So it's your customer persona. So who are your customer archetypes? I mentioned a bit about it. Okay, so this is, let's say, the CTO, 30 to 40 years old, 1 to 2 kids, etc., etc. And this is the profile you should need. You should fill in. Okay, these are usually male. Their household income is usually between X and Y. What are their motivations? Like, what are their aspirations in life? So you come up with this also for your customer segment. So it's not only day in the life, but also your profile. And also you ask questions like who usually influence those people, who usually affect their decision making. Let's do this exercise also again. I'll put again 2 minutes on timer. Okay, great. So I think we are fine on timing. And my apologies for the background noises. If you can hear something, I think my neighbors decided to do some renovation here. Okay, so and the third exercise will be about value proposition. So if we talk about customer discovery, so there are two basic concepts here. So first one is customer segments, and we talked already a lot about customer segments. And the second important concept is value proposition. So now for each customer segment, you try to put in front of it, let's say, what is the customer proposition? What your product, what your solution is going to, how your product, your solution is going to benefit, how is going to benefit your customers. That's what the value proposition is. And always remember that it's not about you, it's about customers, especially in case of first-time founders. We see very often that people usually so founders usually put into product what they want to see in the product, but that's not the right thing to do at all. So you should focus on what customers want. And the best way, also another one of the best frameworks to deal with value proposition is to focus on pains, gains, and jobs. So what are the pains that your customers have? Okay, and now what is the value proposition in your solution that you are okay, so what's the value proposition that your product helps to what you propose as part of your solution that helps to relieve the pains that your customers have? For example, it's really hard for them to to get from point A to point B during some traffic jam, because it takes them, let's say, 1 hour for just maybe 10-mile journey, but you come up with a unique solution that will take them only, let's say, 10 minutes instead of 1 hour. So there's a pain for them, and now your whatever you built is a sort of pain relief for them. And also, okay, so this is one of the points you can focus is what are the pains there and you are helping to solve. Okay, second one would be what are the gains? What are the gains that your product your product offers, right, or delivers? And in gains you can think more is these are some extra bonuses that it's which are more nice to have. That's why those products which are focused more on let's say relieving pain, usually they are more successful. And the third one will be, okay, what are the jobs that your customers do and now you are going to automate it? Okay, how you are going to automate and what are you exactly going to automate in jobs of your customers? So if you think about these three concepts and think about your value proposition, okay, now my solution provides this value for relieving pain, this value for increasing gains, and this value for automating jobs. This again will help you to define your value propositions pretty well. Let's do another 2 minutes here. I just want you to reflect on your for each of your case. Another 2 minutes. What will be your value proposition for one of your customer segments? You are doing value proposition for each of your customer segment. I think we can move forward. Please don't hesitate to interrupt me and ask any questions if you have. So okay, so now let's reflect more. What is what's the process for customer discovery? The first step in customer development. So okay, you come up with your hypothesis, you test the problem, which means going out and talking to customers and showing them prototypes, etc. Testing the solution. So now you already built something and you see if the solution really solves the problem, because you need to always also to test the solution in tech business, and verify or pivot, right? So okay, now you say, okay, I verify, so these hypotheses are true or these hypotheses are false. Okay, so now I reject them. This is the canonical customer discovery, and in customer development, there is a term for this. It's called, this is the process of searching the Holy Grail, which means searching your problem solution fit. If you do this pretty successful, you will find the problem solution fit. So it means, okay, you now created, and this is always going by iterations, and usually it takes. It depends on the industry. It may take from, let's say, 10 weeks. It can be taking even half a year to do proper customer discovery. Just to bring maybe a few examples from my experience. So we invested in a company which raised more than 1.5 million. And during first year, maybe even more, the founders, they didn't hire anyone outside. Even they hate that they had a bunch of money on bank account. They didn't hire anyone, and they were coming up with hypotheses and were testing the problems, testing the solution, whatever they are building as founders, and were doing it in cycles, in very fast iterations. And we receive usually monthly reports from the companies that we invest. And no, there were months then when they had, let's say, for example, 60K revenue, or they had maybe 15K revenue, right? And they and you see these spikes, but then it's 0, 0, 0, and again another revenue like 0, 0, 0. And when you think when you approach, let's say, building a very big company from this perspective, it even does make sense to drop your customer who even paid you 50K if there is no market. And now we are going to talk about what is the product market fit, because this way you are getting your problem solution fit, but it's not still an indicator that you have a product. Because one of the best definitions about tech products I really like, so it's not something that's only the substance or only whatever you build, but also your distribution channels. If you build something interesting, something even demanded, but you cannot set up, let's say, good distribution channels, it doesn't mean that you still have a product, because product is something very linked with the market. And the second process, which is customer discovery, it will be about finding product market fit. We'll talk about it later. So, and some tips how to conduct your customer interviews, customer discovery. So prep plan contacts. So which means come up with 100 names in an Excel sheet that you are going to talk. You can put some, let's say, different details about each of them, and then see what are the patterns which you are seeing evolving from talking with these 100 people. Try to go face to face. This would be much more challenging during this pandemic, but usually for customer interviews, you want face to face interviews. And one of the best ways to conduct the interview is when there are 3 people from your side who are conducting the interview. So one person is leading the conversation, so talking and leading the conversation. So second person is in charge of writing the response of the interviewee. So whatever they say, they put it on paper. And the third person is in charge of tracking the emotions of the person with whom you are talking. You know, they felt excited when we talked about this topic. They really didn't like, they were very aversive, let's say, when we talked about this, etc., etc. This is very important. And okay, and I'll proceed. So do dry runs before going to a customer interview. You should do your homework and do dry runs. So you and people who are who are going to participate in customer interview, there should be dry run, which means now I'm pitching, I'm interviewing my friend, and doing it a few times in order to be better prepared for a real customer interview. So these are the dry runs. So you can call them also repetitions. One of the things that you may use, it's a general term. It's called smartest person. So when you're approaching someone and saying, you know, I know your expertise, and your feedback would be very important. You're not saying directly, okay, you are the smartest person, but you are appreciating the person's knowledge and expertise and whatever he or she can share for you, and you put it into your synopsis for your customer interview. Okay, so pass-fail experiments. Again, this has something to do with the patterns that you are going to see. And after 20 interviews, you are going to do the Canonical, again, customer development advises to do this exercise. So before starting the conversation, before starting the interview, you yourself say, okay, I think these customers, they are going to say this and this, they are going to emphasize A, B, C, right? And then after your interview, you see if you passed your assumption, if you passed your, let's say, prediction forecast, or you didn't. So it will be pass or fail. And over time you will see that you are increasing number of passes and decreasing number of your failures in those customer interviews, which is a good indicator, because it seems now you started understanding these people, how they think, what they want, what are their motivations, etc., what's their budget, etc. Okay, so being aggressive, this is something that usually people don't advise, but in this case, try to be also a bit provocative. Try to provoke people to not be nice with you, because usually, especially in US culture, people are nice by default, right? But you don't want good answers, you want real answers, because what is going to be beneficial for you is real answers, instead of, this is something exciting, I most probably I would use it, and then you build something and no one uses it. So being aggressive, of course, you should be polite, but just being aggressive, being a bit pushy, will help you a lot also during these interviews. When you are approaching, try to be very informal. Of course, introduce yourself, and try not to sell. This is not the conversation with the customer where you are selling something. This is something that you want to establish. This is a relationship where you want to establish trust as fast as possible in order to get what people really think about your product. So being formal, not selling. Okay, so second one would be, so next one would be let conversation flow. So if you are the person in charge of the conversation leading the conversation with the interview during these customer interviews, so try to try to plan in a way and behave in a way that 90% of the time you are listening, and you are talking only 10% of the time, because your job is to make people talk, more and more and more, so you can understand what's really there behind their words. Usually we target 90%, but in practice we see it's usually around 70%. But again, if you get 70%, that's also a really good number. If 70% of the time you were the listener. Find patterns. Okay, this is something we already touched. So find patterns and like making very basic, very initial conclusions. This is, remember, during the interviews, it's not the time for conclusions, but you may find some patterns, seeing, for example, those who are in this age, they usually like, let's say, they usually drive this kind of car or whatever. So you start noticing some patterns, and of course, make notes about those patterns. Find early evangelists. Again, this is another, let's say, hidden agenda when you are conducting customer interviews. To find those people who are very desperate to use your even MVP, your prototype, even with with a lot of bugs. Find those people and establish good relationships with them, because whenever you have your MVP, those are going to be those people will be very, very helpful for you. So find your early evangelists also during your customer interviews, and communicate discoveries, the data, not conclusions. Now, when you go back to your office and you have, let's say, and your team is in your office, or people with whom you are sharing. So what you should pay attention to, you should communicate. Sorry, was there a question? Can I ask to mute everyone? So when you go back to the office after the interview, try to communicate data to the people who are in your office or with whom you share your ideas. And try to communicate data, not conclusions. This is very important because you might be biased, so better communicate data and then come to conclusions together with the team. Because one of your teammates may say, oh, you know, and I noticed this from that person, and I noticed that from that person. And now your conclusion in this, if you are making conclusion this way, so the quality will be much higher. Okay, cool. So next step after customer discovery is customer validation. And this is, as I said, where you come to your product market fit. Okay, now you have tested your problems. Okay, they are real problems. You build something, your MVP, which solves those problems. Okay, you test it and you proved also your solution. So now there is a problem solution proof, which was from the previous stage, right? The customer discovery. Which means, okay, you discovered a customer group, right? Customer segment. Now, the goal of this stage is customer validation, which means, are they really going to pay? And is there really a market? So now this is where you validate your customer and market, your product and market. Okay, and how it works. So you start working here with preparing your distribution channels, with working in distribution channels. So you are getting ready to sell. Then you test your selling, test your different channels. In order to get feedback about the positioning, because you may think that in your value proposition, when you have, let's say, 10 items in your value proposition, those 3 in the top are the most important for this customer segment. Then during testing, you understand, you know, those 3 in the bottom are actually the most important ones. So now you put them in the beginning. So again, you are developing your positioning also during this customer validation. And of course, you're verifying the process. And your goal is to get scalable and repeatable business model. If you get something with positive economy, which means, you know, I'm spending $100 on these channels and I'm getting in return $500, okay, this means this is a good repeatable business model. And then you test, okay, if now I put, let's say, if I put $1,000, will I get $5,000 back? If the answer is yes, it means, okay, now you got also scalable business model. And this is where you get to your product market fit. So only working with distribution channels, really selling stuff, this is how you get to your product market fit. And this is where again, it's a joke in customer development, like communities. So this is where you start differentiating, where your company really starts getting vision. When we say, okay, this is the vision of my company, etc. This is where it really where you really start getting your vision instead of the hallucination. Or there's another way people say it. So this is where vision of the founder becomes the vision of the company, because vision of the company should be something already proved. If it's not proved yet, it may be vision of the founder, right? Or it's a hallucination for the company. Okay, cool. And just wanted to share also this slide for you to understand how VCs think about market due diligence, because there are, I think, more than 10, 11 different due diligences, depending on which stage that the VCs are usually going into. But the regular market due diligence, one of the items there looks like the following. So VCs, so investors, they want to see customer need. So you need to prove somehow there's a customer need. You need to prove what's the market size, or the market size you are claiming is true. So you need to be very well aware about your competitors. And of course, you need to prove that there is a market growth potential. This is what VCs are going to look when they are doing their due diligence about your market. And also try to be, so ideally, this comes from Sequoia Capital, which is one of the leading VC firms globally. So this is the question they love to ask, why now? When you go to raise money, so the answer, this is a great question. If you have a solid answer to why now, again, based on my experience, I don't think you will have any issues with fundraising. If you are answering why you are raising now this amount and these milestones, and as solid is your justification, so as higher are the chances that you will raise the money. So always try to prepare yourself to answer this question, why now? That's one of the most tough questions during the fundraising, why now? And the best answer for why now is this. So we got a repeatable and scalable business model. And now we just need another 1 million to put into this machine and get, let's say, 5 million back. This is the best way, this product market fit, which is called also product market. If you get to the product market fit, it means that's you are there for your round A, and you have a solid answer for why now. Okay, cool. And the fourth exercise that I want us to do is about pricing, because one of the important learnings also during customer validation is pricing, is working with pricing. And there are two main approaches if we talk about pricing. So pricing based on cost, which is something which is very traditional, orthodox. And for example, this is the cost. Let's say it costs me $100 to produce some item. Now I'm going to put, let's say, 20% margin, and I'm going to sell it with $125 or whatever, right? So so pricing based on cost, it's an old model, and if you are building a new product, there are usually very few references that you might have, and the market is not there also, so it's developing when you are building innovative product. So usually what is advised here is to follow this pricing on judgment. So how much your customers value the product you are selling to them. And here's an example I really like. So let's say we are selling a book, and online is $59, so hard copy is $125, and hard copy and online is $125. Usually, a lot of people, when we ask, okay, which one from those offers are the best, usually people ask 125 because you get both online and hard copy. But what happens when you see this kind of pricing fork in front of you? First of all, it subconsciously justifies that the product costs at least $59. That well, why not $20, right? So it says, okay, this is the option one, and it's online, and it's $59. And now imagine if we develop something very innovative. This is where this framework can be very helpful. Okay, so it's $59 for online version. Okay, it seems it's cheap. This is how we usually think about it. Hard copy 125. Okay, this is what hard copy then costs. Okay, now online and hard copy, and again 125. Okay, if I now can get this deal with $80, I'll be very happy with the deal. So now you justified that this $80 is a really good price for something that didn't exist before. And maybe we can spend another maybe 1 minute on this exercise. So for you to apply, maybe to to go through, let's say, all the similar cases you saw previously in your life, and also come up with maybe some ideas how you can see this framework also for your business. Okay, let's go for 1 minute. Meanwhile, if there are any questions, so please let me know.
Hamjan, I have a question actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question is about like how early you should start selling your product. I mean, is it possible to sell like just from the day one that you don't have anything in order to understand if the people want to pay? And at the same time, for instance, you told that in US the people are quite polite and they might say that, yeah, we're gonna buy, but in reality they will never buy your product. So is it an option to start selling from the day one to see if they really are thinking to pay?
Look, of course, and if you can sell something from day one, you should. That's the answer, right? Because what's important here, you are not selling it for the revenue usually in the beginning. You are selling it for learnings, right? So you are selling it to get learnings, to understand. Okay, now it seems that $50 was a good price. Now let me try to sell it, let's say, with $200. Okay, people buy also with $200. Okay, now let me try to sell it with $1,000. And this is also how the pricing works. So you approach different customer segments. So you come up with just a number if there's no reference, but usually there are some references, and there are some let's say tweaks and tips that you can use to come up with a reasonable number. But always try to sell let's say with the highest price. If you can sell with because you always can give them discount, right? So always try to sell with the highest price. Yep, that does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So this was basically the last exercise. Yeah, and also if you are starting a company, this is just a bit off topic thing. If you are starting a company, so try let's say get patient, because you need a lot of patience, because during the first 3-4 years usually there should be a lot of hard work, but very few things are going to happen. Again, this is based on historical data. What usually starts happening after the 3rd-4th year. And then you see the results of your work. So always get patience for the first 3-4 years. This would be, again, general advice from me, again based on the experience. So yeah, so this is it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, again, I'm more than happy to take them.
So guys, if there are any questions regarding the topic or the general, like the session itself, or at the beginning, I already introduced the background of Hambardzum, so it's not necessarily to ask only questions about the session itself. You are free to ask questions at any somehow related to his background. So feel free.
I have one question. What would you consider pre-seed investment? Like, at what point does a company have to be considered a pre-seed investment?
Okay, this is a really good question. And in different, let's say, cultures and geographies, there are different, let's say, definitions of what is seed. So in US, seed starts from 1 million. So from 1 to usually to 3 million. If you raise 3 million seed round, that's seed, right? So 1 to 3. And pre-seed is something is everything that comes before seed. Even you can have few rounds before going to seed. This is in US. for example, you raised, let's say 150 or starting from 100K, right? So I think the reasonable number starts from 100K to do something. In some maybe special cases with very risky product and there are a lot of uncertainties, it can be, let's say, starting from 50K. But usually it starts from 100K, and these are the numbers which are true for Armenia and Eastern Europe. This is the region that I'm aware of, and companies from this region targeting the US market. So it starts from 100K. The average is though is around 200 to 400. That's a pre-seed, first pre-seed. So you can raise 200 plus if you are building something that the investors that is in the investment within the investment thesis of the investors. So 200 to 400 is there, and then you might need another round. Let's say maybe around 200 of some sort of bridge. This is something we are seeing very often. And then after that, you need to get to your seed, which means you need to raise more than 1 million. If it doesn't happen, it means that there are issues in the company. There are issues in the company and business model and maybe product or whatever. So and usually this journey takes you around, let's say you started working on something and you before you raise it, it takes in average around 6 months. So before you get to the community, etc., people know you, there are some interactions, you are showing some process, it takes around 6 months in this stage for the region that I'm aware of, right? So then you raise your 200 400 pre-seed, and it takes you 12 to maybe 18 months. Usually it takes you around 12 months. 18, I think 18 is too much. So it usually takes you 12 months to prove that you are into something interesting. Then if you are able to raise seed round 1 million plus, you are raising it. If you are not, then it seems there is still something missing and you are raising some bridge round, again, using some equity here, because ideally you want to go for a seed without any pre-seed in the middle and without any bridge here. So you are raising, again, some maybe 200K or whatever for this, for this period. You are proving what you should prove, and then you raise seed. If you are not successful during this period, okay, so this bridge round, it can be for 6 to 12 months. So there's another 6 to 12 months gap before you get to your seed round. Then of course it's very different for each company, but these are very average numbers. And then if you got to a point that you are there to raise a seed round, you are doing it. If you are not there, you are not. And usually we see both. We see both cases: those who are raising and those who are not, somehow struggling, or even they are stopping doing business.
Okay,
does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And usually, when you're raising a seed round or a pre-seed round of investment, what kind of equity as a VC would you be looking into acquiring in the company?
Okay, so I would maybe approach from the other side. So try not to give more than 15% of your company, even if it's in safe or so convertibles, right? So try not to give more than 15% of your company before you raise seed. I think 15 should be max. In some cases, okay, it can be more, but 15, I think it's max. So it should be between 5 to 15% before you raise your seed round. This is a good interval. If you are giving from 5 to 15% during fundraising before your seed round, that's a good number. Because during your seed round, you are most probably going to give out 20 to 30%, in average 25%. Usually the most bloody round is your seed round. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Cool, guys. Any other questions?
Actually, yes, Hambardzum, thank you for interesting session. It's interesting. At what stage at what stage of the product can you consider investing in it? So you talked
in our
about
case, you mean?
pre-seed and seed, yeah, in terms of how much you will invest, but what will be the stage of the product for pre-seed and seed?
Okay, good question. So look, it's very different. So what we want to see, look, I think the starting point here is your seed round. So for raising, let's say, $1 to $3 million seed round, usually investors want to see. Usually they want to see maybe from 20 to 50K monthly recurring revenue. If you have 20,000 to 50,000 monthly recurring revenue, which is annually, let's say 250 to 600 K annual recurring revenue, which is which applies for SaaS model, right? So it's a subscription model. So users are subscribed and they are renewing it automatically every month. If you have these numbers, you are there to raise $1 to $3 million seed round. So now you know these are the numbers for the seed round, and now you calculate back, right? And now you see, okay, when I can get to these numbers, how much resources and what I need to build, right? So not only the product itself, but also marketing. So what I should do, partnerships, whatever, to get to this place, right? Okay, now in order for me to get to this place, okay, I think I need some, let's say 18 months, and I need some, let's say 400K. Okay, now I'm starting pitching my 18 months milestones, and there will be milestones. Okay, in 3 months I'll get this, in 9 months I'll get this, in 12 months I'll get this, and in 18 months I'll get this. And this is how I'm going to spend my, let's say 400K or 200K, whatever. And this is how you start raising. Based on our experience, working in Armenia and Eastern Europe, usually there is no one pre-seed, usually there are two, because it helps investors, two pre-seeds, right? One is smaller and the second one is a bit bigger, because this the region itself is very fragile, and it helps us to minimize risks, to diversify risks. So what we do the following. For example, if SmartGate allocated according to its model $100,000 per deal. So in the first investment, we are going to invest, let's say 50K. So it will be, let's say 150K round where we put 50K and other people put 100K. So this will be the first round. It won't be for the total, let's say 18 months for the big vision. It will be for some maybe 9 months, 10 months, whatever. And then they need to get by the end of the 6 months to some milestones that we agree in the beginning. Then we see, okay, they got it. They know what they talk about. Okay, let's do the second pre-seed. So this is the practice in our region. Does it make sense?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask you, as in an investment point of view, right? What would you be looking as? What would you be looking forward to as your exit strategy? Like, would you be looking for the company to be acquired or an IPO, or what will be your exit strategy as a pre-seed or seed investor?
So this is a good question. So we are pre-seed investor. We haven't invested in any seed deal yet. So we are pre-seed. So we invest up to 100K. And in pre-seed, we don't have exit strategy. So we have other criteria which are very important. Of course, we have some ideas, some very high-level ideas. So what could be with what can happen with the company, and usually the numbers which are comfortable for us because we are investing much early may be uncomfortable for investors who are investing in post-seed, right? Because something that will be for us, let's say 10x or 30x, and maybe only a few X, like maybe up to 5X for the investor who are investing post-seed. So they won't be happy with those returns. That's why our approach towards the exit of the company is very different in pre-seed, because we are only the pre-seed fund. So in our case, I can share what is important for us. We look at proprietary technology, because the investment thesis of our fund, as I said, we put up to 100K per company, and only in those companies which are targeting US market. So for us, it's important to know that whatever this team is building, so they have proprietary technology, which means it's going to be very hard or impossible for others to copy it, which means there are some patents, etc., which are protecting it. Or it's very hard technology that will take, let's say, a team of 4 really senior engineers to copy it during the next 18 months. Why it's very important for us? Because usually we are investing in immigrant founders, right? Founders who are not from US but want to build company in US. And for those guys, usually they have some disadvantages in terms of understanding market context and business development. So for us, we are sort of balancing, this technological excellence with the lack of let's say, with weaker, let's say, business development skills and experience. So that's why it's important for us if there's a proprietary technology. So this is one thing. And of course, so I can say there are three main components. So first of all, of course, it's market. There can be proprietary technology, but if we don't see there's a market and product, and those people can build products, so we definitely don't invest. So it's market. So market trends, market should be interesting. There should be innovation, real innovation. That's our investment thesis. So team, we usually spend at least few months before making investment decision working with team. So we can bring a lot of value to different teams, and we do it for free, and we invest in some of them. So everyone is happy. So even those who are not getting investment for us, they are also happy because we are bringing value. So this is our approach. Of course, maybe you may think it's not very cost efficient from our perspective, but we are fine. So it's team. We are looking at team, spending time with them. So there should be interesting market and product opportunity, and of course, proprietary technology is something very important for us. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have another question that is related to the discussion about the equity and the rest. So let's imagine a case when a few people are meeting. They are like, they like the idea of the founder, etc., and they are becoming like co-founders of the startup. So is there any tactic how should be the equity or the 100% split it into the participants just from the day one?
Oh, that's a really good question. So and the answer I like, of course, there are different answers, but the answer I like for such situations is the following. So, look, if you are not comfortable to have equal ownership with people that you are going to work with, people with whom you are going to start the company, so most probably they are not a good fit for being a co-founder. If you are, if you know, it's very, it's on very, this feelings level. If you are not feeling comfortable, okay, don't do it, because it's a very hard thing to build a company, especially startups or innovative companies, and it's very hard journey. And if you are not feeling that it's fair that they get equal ownership, even if you came up with the idea, okay, then you should find out something else. That would be my advice. But if there is an agreement, let's say if I started something and based on my network experience, so I'm the person who is, let's say, the knowledgeable, who is the dynamo in the process, and I'm only, let's say, crazy 90%. And there is a co-founder who is in charge of operations because he or she has a really good record in operations. So they are really good project managers or whatever, right? And I need that kind of person. And now we are joining forces to start a company. And if both of us are truly comfortable with having 90% and 10% split, that's fine. That's totally fine. So that's why the basic advice here would be communicate. Communicate your feelings, communicate your concerns, communicate everything that comes to your mind, communicate how you feel, and try to understand whether it's fair or not. Okay, and take some time. Don't rush into decision. Don't rush into this founders or co-founder decision making. Just again, based on my experience, it's very limited, but some historical data. I would advise to spend at least 2 or 3 months at least together to understand if there's a good character fit, if there is a chemistry between you, if you see things similarly, right? If you have complementary skills, someone is, let's say, very creative, but the other person is very reliable, right? Because usually very creative people are not reliable, and usually very reliable people are less creative, right? So try to understand if there is a complementary skill set in the team, and if you feel that comfortable, that if each of you feels that the decisions you make together are much better than the decisions you make yourself, then it seems it's going to be a good partnership. Make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, do we have any other questions? Okay, I guess there are no more questions. So Hambardzum Can, thank you once more so much for the presentation and for the session and for the answering the questions that were a bit away even from the session scope. And the last thing that I would like to ask you, is there any literature or any kind of information that makes a sense to read about the topic so the participants can grab a bit more after the session?
Yeah, it's 4 Steps to Epiphany by Steve Blank. I'm just tapping it into chat. So 4 Steps to Epiphany. This is the must read, and it's all about this customer development. So all this customer development movement started from there. Yeah, of course, the Lean Startup is a great one too, and also the one is called the Startup Owner's Manual. It's very very thick book, again by Steve Blank. So these are great books for the topic. So definitely, I would advise to go for those. If we talk about customer development, about how to start thinking about acquiring and nurturing, building, discovering, validating your customers. And I see another book which is Traction. Yeah, Traction is a great book for growth hacking framework. If you are thinking about your marketing framework, no, not details, but what it could look like, yeah, Traction is also a great book. But if we talk about customer development, so these 2 are must reads in my opinion. Thank you. Yeah, and mom's test, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Hamjan. And
yeah, but by the way, let me emphasize one more time. So the mom's test, I forgot about the book. So mom's test is a really great manual guideline for customer interviews. It's not covering, the whole process, the whole concept, but the mom's test, it's a small one. I think it's only 40 pages or whatever. But it's a really great one with a lot of practical advices for customer interviews specifically.
Okay, great. And please, we would like to have one last word to the participants. What would you suggest them to do?
Oh, the best advice I ever received. I can say that story. So it's a bit funny story. So I tried to reach out to a person 5 years back from now, just for a coffee, just to get his feedback. And he was very well known, respected, and with very solid traction. Person with very solid traction. And it was. So I spent, so it was first time I was in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area. I spent a bit more than I think 2 months there, but we still didn't, we still couldn't meet. And this was his advice, which helped me in very hard periods in my life. It was 2 words: just be persistent. So be persistent. This is something that helps me when there are hard times come. So just be persistent. This is a business when you are dealing with uncertainty, and what you need to do is just thoughtfully and skillfully push forward. So be persistent. Do whatever you do. Yeah, that would be, so be persistent.
So thank you for the advice, and thank you for everything, and hope to see you soon back in Armenia, and already we will have a offline opportunities of working with teams rather than the online ones.
Sure, guys. Thank you so much. This was a fun. This was a great fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, bye everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.